it going, everybody? To a fun review today as we're talking Devil May Cry. Growing up as a kid in that era of the early 2000s, Devil May Cry was one of those franchises I loved. So the prospects of a brand new anime set within the Devil May Cry universe did excite me quite a bit. Admittedly, I have kind of fallen off as a fan in recent years, but to be fair, there has not been a new Devil May Cry game in forever. Devil May Cry 5 was, 6 years ago now? Regardless, you for sure can jump into this series no matter what your fan level is, since it's definitely a prequel somewhere in that timeline before Devil May Cry 3, based on the events that transpire within the plot of this show. And more or less, the story delivers on that same level of excitement I get from playing the Devil May Cry video game. Where this series excels the hardest, it has to be the action sequences. They waste no time letting you know that this series is going to be over-the-top, violent, gallons of blood spraying all over the place. Dante's facing a wide variety of different demons, and quipping while he shoots an absurd amount of bullets anytime he uses his dual pistols, all while some awesome rock music is blasting in the background. From an animation standpoint, I'm very impressed also with Studio Mir's animation. The style they implement works beautifully to enhance Devil May Cry visually. Every episode almost, it felt like their entire goal with Dante's action set pieces, and even some of Lady's, was to try and make every single action set piece bigger, bloodier, and more intense than the last. And I would say for the most part, I think they succeeded exceptionally. There's quite a nice variety to the action too. Swords, guns, freeway chases. One episode even has Dante saving all these different people mid-air after a plane crashes in the sky. Now, some of the more 3D elements to the animation, while it is noticeable how it's mixed in with the 2D stuff, the all-around aesthetic visually looks great. There's even one episode in the show where they use a completely different, more cartoony animation style for Rabbit's origin story. Even before I went into this show, I knew the soundtrack for this series was going to be pretty amazing, just by what they tease to this point. You know, when you have a Devil May Cry series where the opening intro is set to Rollin' by Limp Bizkit, you knew exactly what the target demographic they're trying to cater the show towards. Those old school gamers that grew up playing these games, that watch nothing but those classic AMVs on early YouTube, most of which the songs used in the AMVs were from these bands. Anytime these metal songs kick in during the action and Dante's pulling off crazy combos against demons, it captures that immaculate high-octane energy from the games. From Limp Bizkit to Papa Roach to Crazy Town, Evanescence, it's just awesome all around. Evanescence even recorded a brand new song for Devil May Cry that, other than those first two albums that Evanescence put out back in the day, is probably their best song since, especially due to the epic way that it's utilized within the show, setting the mood for Lady's origin being explored further. When discussing the voice cast assembled for Devil May Cry, first I gotta mention the fact that I think it's surreal that even after all of these years, Kevin Conroy still is voicing characters in media. He passed away 3 years ago now, and voices Vice President Bane in this series, this overly religious politician who puts himself in the middle of Dante's demon-filled conflict. He's a pretty wild new addition to the franchise. He gives this monologue to Dante about God not allowing him to die until the purpose he intends for him to be fulfilled. The over-the-top nature to it was great. I do wonder how much of it he did record himself though, because Vice President Bane is credited to both Kevin Conroy and Ian James Corlett. As for Dante, I wasn't sure necessarily how I would feel about Johnny Young Bosch voicing Dante. Not that it has anything to do with Johnny Young Bosch's vocal talents. He's a fantastic voice actor. Mostly, it's the fact that I know him more as Nero, Dante's nephew, and now here he's voicing Dante, so this just seems kind of weird to me. Bosch's portrayal of Dante captures the type of Dante that I love. There's a cool arrogance to his demeanor no matter what he has to deal with, from hunting and fighting demons, or dealing with Darkholm and Rabbit coming for his amulet. Plus, I couldn't help but smile that they gave him so many different awesome one-liners, yet still made sure to give him opportunities to be silly and say some funny, awkward one-liners any chance they possibly could too. Regardless whether or not you've played the games or not, so you have an idea, I guess, where his arc could potentially go, I do think Dante's arc here still has some thrills. In this story, it still is very early days Dante. He's incredibly naive, so through his showdowns with Darkholm and trying to stop White Rabbit's plan from coming to fruition, we're given first glimpses into revelations for Dante's character that'll lead him towards the events we know are coming from the video games. Like him discovering that he's part demon, figuring out how his devil trigger works, and of course, the usual drama revolving around his brother Virgil. They made sure to find some shape or form to include Virgil in the show after all. I mentioned her earlier, but Lady being in the show, voiced by Scout Taylor Compton, was a nice surprise. She's a character I like a lot in the video game, so it was great to see her included in the show and bounce off of Dante, delve more into her backstory. As I said earlier, some of her battles one-on-one against these demons are a major highlight. One detail I did kind of find strange that you would never be able to tell because of the marketing is that a large chunk of this show is actually more focused around her than Dante. Don't get me wrong, Dante is still incredibly vital to the majority of the show's story, but there's a few stretches, especially in the middle portion episodes, where Lady feels more like the main character. Much of the plot revolves around her hatred towards demons, which, if you know the character, you completely understand why, and they show you that backstory with her father. And over time, on these missions, she grapples with trying to become more tolerant to them, whether it be through her interactions with Dante, or meeting literal demon refugees that Rabbit smuggles through portals into our world. Arguably, Lady has a bigger connection to the main antagonist Rabbit in the show than Dante does, because they literally tie their backstories to each other. Now, this show is geared towards a much more mature audience. For some reason in this show, they make Lady curse so much. I don't even really care that much when people curse. It'd be one thing if the cursing felt natural in the dialogue that's being used. Lady is just dropping F-bombs mid-sentence for no reason almost every episode. While the majority of the story in Devil May Cry I had a good time with, I did realize going into this is pretty much from the same showrunners that did Castlevania, a show that I more so liked, but also had some questionable story decisions in it as well. And here in Devil May Cry, there's certainly some messaging thrown into the narrative that comes across fairly mixed. Not so much Dante's involvement within the story. A good amount boils down to it doesn't feel like the series fully wanted to commit to Rabbit being a true villain. From the very opening of the show, he's set up to be this very unhinged presence, to the point where it's exciting whenever he pops up trying to enact his plan to steal Dante's amulet. Considering the fact that Rabbit is a character within this universe, although he's been sparely used, I think he's only been used in that manga a very long time ago, we barely know anything about the character, and what they chose to fill in his origin story made him appear more like a tragic anti-hero by the conclusion. Sure, both sides of this humans versus demon conflict commit atrocities against one another. Rabbit kills many people in pursuit of his desire to break the barrier. Darkcom objectively does far worse things, especially in the finale. It just seemed like the deeper we went into the show, learning more info about Rabbit, dedicating an entire episode around the pain he's endured in his backstory, on top of these literal demon refugees that he smuggles into our world, you're meant more so to sympathize with him, even though he wants to bring all demons into our world regardless if they're good or bad. Maybe that's just how I saw the story, but I don't necessarily feel like that's a great story set within Devil May Cry, at least. This series, though, is a very easy binge. The story is incredibly fast-paced with super short episodes. The longest one is roughly about 32 minutes with credits, and then the shortest one is like 21 minutes with credits, which is insanely short. If you're a diehard Devil May Cry fan, I feel like you'll already kind of have a rough idea of the confines where the story can go, but I don't feel like that necessarily negates the journey we go on either. I still think it's a fun experience whether you're a big fan of the franchise or not. Honestly, this is the type of show that if you had shown this to me as a teenager when I was super into Devil May Cry, I would make this show my entire new personality and obsess over it because of the badass action and killer rock soundtrack attached to it. I'm not entirely sure if there are plans to continue on with this show with multiple seasons. You would assume after a point the show would just end up being the video games like Devil May Cry 3. But there are at least some cool teases if they do want to make another season. Hopefully this is just the start to Devil May Cry returning into the major conversation online, because it has been such a long time. I need a new Devil May Cry game. Devil May Cry 5 was back in 2019. I think we're due for a new Devil May Cry at this point. Once you get a chance to check out Devil May Cry on Netflix, it's out now. Make sure you share your thoughts down below. What'd you think of the series? Did you like the series? Did you not like the series? Thank you guys, as always, checking out videos. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you like on the video and also subscribe to the channel for some reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.